This place is special because it's ephemeral. It doesn't last for long, but it's so very important. Welcome to Sam Outside. I'm Sam, and well, I'm outside enjoying a little tour and a little exploration of this vernal pond. The word vernal meaning seasonal, and I would even be playing loose if I use the word pond here. It's a vernal pool, otherwise known as an ephemeral pool. It is seasonal. By definition, the vernal pool or the vernal pond doesn't have any water source coming in, and it won't have any water source leaving. It's not spring fed. All right, so it's solely relying on spring runoff and spring rainfall. Now, what makes these so very special is that they are an important niche part of the forest ecosystem for certain life forms that need water, but their adaptation is that they won't choose an actual pond or lake or river system to avoid predation and maybe competition. So this little pond behind me is a favorite place for my family and I to stop when we're just exploring, or if we've got some friends over, we want to show them something neat, because in the spring, this is the final destination of a couple different species of salamanders for their salamander migration. So as amphibians, frogs and toads will go to a body of water and they'll lay their eggs, and in a couple of weeks, those little egg sacs hatch and the larval form. Sorry, there's Indiana trying to do his own exploration. The larval form will spend the rest of the season before they mature and leave their aquatic stage and go out on land. But in a lot of pools, there are many aquatic dangers. All right, so there are aquatic insects, and of course, there are fish and there are birds that see those egg sets and those little aquatic amphibians in their larval stage as a food source. So here in a vernal pond, there are no fish. All right, well, they're not supposed to be anyway. They'd be introduced, but there are no fish. And there are, so the larger aquatic insects, that's not part of their life cycle either. It's not part of their habitat. So there's more success. The challenge and the downside to that payoff is that it is seasonal. So there's no guarantee that this body of water will be there for the entire aquatic or larval stage of those amphibians. So yeah, there's a chance that this could dry up just with, a warm spell, or perhaps drainage or some other environmental factor, that this pool won't be there to finish. So we could lose an entire season's worth of wood frog and potentially tree frog, Jeffrey salamander, and yellow spotted salamander, and the slimy salamander, or the blue spotted salamander. Those and again, there's a whole series of invertebrates that are out there, and even fairy shrimp, little freshwater shrimp. They would call these vernal pools their home. So if this did dry up, if it didn't make it through most of summer, we would lose this season's worth of those important vertebrates that feed other birds and other other parts of the ecosystem, and we'd lose all those salamanders as well, and frogs. All right, so there's some of them that you won't find their little ones out in ponds and lakes. They're strictly found here in vernal ponds. Now, this little vernal pond is quite consistent. There are other pools, right? There are other pools out there in the forest, but I have seen seasons where this little pool, it's not that deep, but you can see here based on the terrain that I am in fact in a bowl. So there is quite a bit of terrain, and there's the ability for this part of the forest to hold. So as the season, it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, but there is a core a little bit deeper, and that's where all the life will funnel. And they're built to have their their life cycle sort of. They can feel it. They'll just become a little more timely with their development. So if it's a really wet season and it's not that cold and there's lots of food, their strategy, their adaptations are to stay in that larval form for as long as possible, right? So just help them put on some weight, get them to a bigger size. And what would drive them out of that would be, well, of course, the risk and loss of that. Maybe it's competition, right? So they would know that, hey, it's time to get out of here, right? We gotta get some legs. right? We got to learn how to breathe air instead of relying on our gills. So yeah, that is possible for these little ones. But this is a really special place. Not to mention, there are parts, for birds finding a water source, and for some of our other mammals. This would be a nice safe place for deer. They're going to make a habit of stopping by. Moose as well. But yeah, every mammal in the forest will know where the consistent water sources are. But we're fortunate enough that in this part of the world, I mean, I live between a couple different rivers, so wildlife never really has to travel that far, right? But they do have these little oases, and there's some vegetation that will only grow in and around. There are certain trees that absolutely love to have wet feet, all right? Certain willows and certain perennials that will only find their way around here because, again, due to competition, right? There's just not space, and maybe the soil conditions are a little bit different due to the rocky terrain. But yeah, and we'll get little puddles like this, but they won't last the season. They might just last a month or a week, depending on how dry. So yeah, it's a special place. I like to explore and share, and when I notice something that I want to revisit, I'll add it to my mental inventory, and it's been pretty consistent. So it's a special place. I thought I'd share it. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate you. Okay, bye-bye.